What up? Welcome back to another video on one of the YouTube channels ever, and today we're going to be talking about YouTube's brand spanking new meta, breastfeeding. Now, before we even get into it, I did want to point out that this style of content isn't necessarily 100% new. It's definitely been a thing for quite some time, it's just that recently more people have been hopping on the trend. And the more people that I'm talking about is, of course, these sleazy, garbage OnlyFans creators. And I know it might sound like I'm being a bit harsh on them, but I swear, they just straight up ruin the image of anything that they touch. The second they find even the smallest loophole possible, they just all jump on the opportunity to basically post porn without getting in trouble and double it as an advertisement for their garbage OnlyFans. But trash talking OnlyFans creators aside, and moving into today's situation, like I said earlier, this type of content isn't necessarily new, but it's recently kind of been revitalized, and one of the main people that were pushing this content is a channel that goes by Sierra Education, and contrary to her name, she's not really doing much educating. And I guess I'm also not the only one that thought that, considering she has been banned. But to get an idea of the type of video she was making, let's look at possibly the most popular one right here. It's of course gonna be fully censored, but in her videos it wasn't, everything was just fully out. But it's titled New Breastfeeding Tutorial, 4K Breastfeed Tips. Now just from that title and the thumbnail alone, if I was a YouTube moderator, I'd almost be inclined to take this down and or ban her just off of that alone. And I'm of course not opposed to any educational content, even on topics like this, but the way that she's just sitting there staring at the camera and smiling in a strange way, also combined with the fact that she really wanted to point out that this is in 4K, really just doesn't sit right with me. Something just makes me think that she may not be creating this for educational purposes. I also wanted to point out the sheer amount of views that this video got. In this screenshot, you can see that the video was uploaded 6 days ago, and it's already at 1.8 million views. She only has 163,000 subscribers. That's an insane amount of views, so as much as I don't like this scummy advertising tactic, I do have to admit that it clearly did work, at least in the idea that it worked as free advertisement. I don't know if it necessarily converted into OnlyFans subs, but she definitely got what she was looking for. I also wanted to point out that throughout this video, she's not using a real baby. She is using like a mannequin prop baby, and I think one of the main reasons for that is, like I said, this content isn't necessarily new, and one of the biggest creators that used to do this content did use a real baby, and she ended up getting arrested and put in jail for that. I forgot her channel name, but I think she's still currently in jail. So basically every creator that's now jumping on this trend is making sure that they don't actually use a real baby. But even with learning from previous creators' mistakes, like I said earlier, she still did end up getting banned, and I can only hope that YouTube keeps up this pace of just shutting down these channels as quickly as possible, because while her getting banned is a good thing, it does also bring a lot more attention to this situation and to this type of content, and it's really just gonna make where more creators make this type of content. Because even though she did get banned, most of these OnlyFans creators don't really care about getting banned. If anything, they know they're gonna get banned sooner or later, and they'd almost rather get banned in hopes that it can bring more attention to them. So reasonably, it looks like really the only hope of this type of content going away is for YouTube to change their rules on how this type of content is promoted. Because what they're doing now is, instead of posting their OnlyFans links and everything like that directly in the description or in the comments, they'll post, I'm not too sure what it's actually called, but it's basically a Linktree website that you click on that link and it leads you to a website full of a bunch of their other links, so they can kind of circumvent not directly linking their OnlyFans account. And the more I talk about this, the more it's making me realize how truly scummy this type of content is. These sleazebags are genuinely taking advantage of what's meant to be educational content for the sole purpose of pushing their shitty pornographic content. And at least with Twitch, sure, it was still bad, but I don't think it was even nearly as bad as this situation, because on Twitch, they were mainly taking advantage of things like hot tubs, pools and beaches, and things like that where you'd really already kind of expect someone to be in a swimsuit swimsuit anyway. But in this situation, they're taking advantage of breastfeeding. You have to be fucking kidding me. These people genuinely have no morals whatsoever. What if it's an actual parent looking up a tutorial on how to breastfeed because it's possibly their first time being a mother and they don't know how, and then they click a channel, oh, Sierra Education, that sounds like an education channel, she might show me what to do, and then they click on your video to see you smiling awkwardly at the camera, getting ready to oil up and just pop your fucking tits out with a mannequin baby next to you to consider it breastfeeding content. And this really just reinforces the point that I brought up earlier where they just ruin the image of everything they touch. And it gets that much worse when you realize how hard they're trying to push their influence to sites that they're not really welcomed on when they already have their own sites. Sites like OnlyFans and I think Fansly as well were basically created for the sole purpose of the type of content that these people are making, and they're still trying to push it onto everyone else that doesn't want to fucking see it. And that's really the main problem that I have with these creators. I don't necessarily have a problem with them making whatever type of content they want. It's just that they need to keep it on their own platforms and stop trying to intrude on every other platform that doesn't want them there. Because even though we're really specifically talking about YouTube today, it's not just YouTube that they're trying to infiltrate. It's realistically every single social media platform that they think they can get a decent amount of attention from. And on the topic of them not just stopping at YouTube, they're also not just stopping at breastfeeding either. There's a ton of different content on YouTube where they're just blatantly pushing porn, and one of the top ones that a lot of people aren't talking about is a type of content called, I think it's transparent clothing try-ons or transparent clothing hauls. It's one of those two, but I honestly think that this type of content is arguably worse because it's much more accessible and they show off much more. As the name suggests, they find the most transparent see-through piece of clothing that they can get their hands on and then just toss that on themselves while wearing absolutely nothing under it and then just start posing in the most suggestive ways possible. I honestly don't know how this type of content still exists on YouTube. I know it's technically educational, but these people definitely aren't making these videos for educational purposes, especially considering basically all of them just have a link to their OF under it. I also can't really show examples of this because, like I said before, this content is much more revealing than the breastfeeding content. They're just wearing basically nothing and showing off everything. I'm also definitely gonna miss a lot of points in this video because there's just so much wrong with this type of content, but really the last and probably the worst of all point that I wanted to bring up before I close the video out is the type of people that are gonna end up seeing this type of content, and that's of course kids. Now, like I said earlier, they go to every single platform that they can to try to advertise their garbage, and the worst part about that is I feel like the majority of people that are gonna be seeing and interested in this content is probably gonna be kids. Because chances are, if you're not a kid and you end up seeing some content like that, there's a high chance you're just gonna completely ignore it and not engage with it at all, because if you're really on that type of timing, you know where to go to get what type of content you want. But most kids probably aren't really the same. They're gonna see one of these posted like, oh my god, oh boobies, and I know a lot of these videos do end up getting age restricted or whatever, but let's be honest here, what kid actually has their real age input into their YouTube account or any account at all? And just like what happened with the Twitch situation, this is probably my biggest problem and concern with this whole situation. Just the fact that this type of content that really, when it comes down to it, can be 100% addictive is gonna end up being fed to kids. And honestly, all we can really hope for at this point is all the videos that everyone's making on this topic and everything draws a bit more attention to the situation to hopefully make YouTube try to regulate this content a bit better so people that shouldn't be watching it can't really get a hold of it, and the people that are just ruining entire topics start to see some sort of consistent punishment. But with that said, that's pretty much been it talking about YouTube's new meta, and if you made it this far in the video, you probably liked something, so you may as well drop a like and maybe even subscribe. You'd be helping us get one step closer to our goal of 1 billion subscribers, but I'm not gonna hold y'all for too long, so I'll catch you guys in the next one.